Applied Design and Art at Curtin University, Australia, and her bachelor is in Visual Communication Design at ITS Surabaya. And her professional experience is as now Dr. Oin is in Senior Manager on Promotion and Mobility at ITS Global Engagement, and also as lecturer and researcher in Visual Communication Design Department in ITS Surabaya. And our second speaker is Dr. Danilo. Mbak Reni, could you please? Okay, Dr. Danilo and Oficiar. Okay. Okay. His educational background, Dr. Danilo, in 2013, he his Doctor of Philosophy was in Manuel L. Quezon University, Philippines, and his master degree is in education in Tarlac State University, and Dr. Danilo's bachelor is in AB Social Science in Tarlac State University. From 2018 until now, Dr. Danilo is Associate Professor 5, and from 2019 until now, Dr. Danilo is Vice President for Student Affairs and Services in Tarlac Agricultural University. Okay, now without any further ado, let's proceed to the main agenda for Dr. Octaviyanti. The time is yours.
Okay. Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Fidian Ade Maulidi, for your kind introductions. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon from Surabaya, Indonesia. It is my pleasure to be here to present about the understanding of GLS, Sustainable Development Goals, number 2, Zero Hunger. So, please allow me to share my screen. Okay, and before we starting our presentation today, I would like you to do some interactions. And okay, is it visible?
Yes, we can see it clearly, Oin.
Okay, yes, thank you, Miss Rainey. So everyone, you can call me as Oyin or Dr. Oyin. So please go to the www.menti.com and use the code 64657456 and please answer my questions, and you could put 3 words. So what would you think if you heard word hunger? Okay, so let's play along for, I think, 3 minutes, and let's see what would you think if you heard word hunger. Okay. I haven't seen anyone to join. Okay. You can see this man emoticon or icon. This will see how many participants. So maybe Mr. Rainey or Mr. Ade could try to join these interactions. Does it work?
Just a moment, Dr. Oin.
Okay.
I still try to join.
Okay. To need to crave. Okay. Anyone? Urgent, terrible, awful. Okay, it's coming. There are 6. I hope more people will be joining because I saw that there are 72 participants in this room. So I think I'm looking forward to have more people to join this interactions. Okay. Okay, so the need to crave, lack of food. If you see a word that looks bigger than the others, it indicates that that's the most words that came up when we think or when we hear about word hunger. So that's the poverty, poor, low economy are the most mentioned words. Okay, and there are 18 people. Can we go up to maybe 30? Because we have 71 participants here. Okay, poverty, lack of food, heaviness, craving, extended household, bad health, miserable, sorrow, children. Okay, so we reached 25, I think. When we reach 25, so we can continue this lecture, okay? Okay, it's coming. Twenty-three, 24. Did you participate, Mr. Ade? Okay, please one more. Okay, we have 79. Okay, hello everyone who just joining us. Okay, so we're running an interactions about what would you think if you heard word hunger. Yes, we hit 25. Thank you everyone. So when you hear word hunger, so you will relate to lack of food, poverty, poor, malnutrition, and low economy. That's what we will discuss today. And please, I will stop my screen right now for this Mentimeter. And okay, hold on. I will play a video, so I have to share this one. Okay. So, Mas Ade, is it visible? Mbak Reni? Okay. So, today we will learn and try to understand what is the UN or United States SDGs goals number 2, the zero hunger. Okay. And we did that. So most of you would say poverty, lack of food, poor, malnutrition, and low economy, and things like that. We always refer to those words when we may refer to those words when we hear hunger. First of all, we will look at what is the definition of zero hunger. So zero hunger is the number 2 of among 17 United Nations SDGs goal, and it aims to end hunger, achieve food security, and promotes a sustainable agriculture by 2030. Now we are in 2022. So do you think after the 2 years of COVID-19 pandemic, will we achieve those goals in 2030? In 2019, there are 821 million people who suffered from hunger. And it also indicates that 1 from 9 people do not get enough food. And 1 in 3 of the world populations experience undernourishment. That's the data from 2019. If we added a COVID-19 pandemic for the past 2 years, the UN or the United Nations have revised their goals to, for specifically in zero hunger. It's not on track to achieve the zero hunger in 2030. Instead, they stated in their website that they extend the goals to 2050. So it because the World Food Program reports that 135 million suffer from acute hunger, mainly because of man-made conflicts, climate change, and economic crisis. And the staggering number, the COVID-19 pandemic could add 130 million more people who will be at risk to suffer from acute hunger. So if we think about hunger, so our questions will be, are there not enough food? But actually the world produces enough food for 7 billion people. But in the next video, we will watch that there is a paradox on food supply and also in the world agriculture. So let's watch the movie. Okay. So can you hear the voice calling?
Yeah, we can hear perfect, Dr. Oyen.
Okay, so let's watch the movie, and you can interact with us in the chat box, and let's hear what do you think about this paradox?
It's estimated that 1 billion people worldwide suffered from starvation in 2012. This means 1 person out of 7. However, our planet produces enough to feed its entire population. Hunger should therefore not exist. Let's take three countries to highlight the problem: Bolivia in Latin America, and the Democratic Republic of Congo and Ethiopia in Africa. These countries are struggling with the scourge of hunger, even though they have huge potential in terms of food and agricultural production. Bolivia is 35 times bigger than Belgium, with an equal number of inhabitants. A third of its land is dedicated to agriculture and livestock farming, and 40% of its population depends on agriculture for its livelihood. However, more than a quarter of Bolivians suffer from malnutrition. Bolivia is the poorest country in Latin America. The Congo's natural resources could feed the entire African continent. 58% of the Congolese population depends on agriculture, but this country has the highest percentage of undernourished people in the world, 70% of its population. There are 64 million farmers in Ethiopia, or 77% of the country's population. The largest cattle herds in Africa are in Ethiopia, enough to supply milk and meat to all of East Africa, and yet 41% of Ethiopians are undernourished. The paradox is stark. Countries that are mainly populated by farmers are those most affected by hunger and malnutrition. Across the planet, over 60% of the people who go hungry are the families of farmers, animal breeders, or fishermen. In comparison, only 2 to 12% of Europeans, depending on the country, are farmers. And in the USA, only 2%. These countries are affected by a different problem. Their populations suffer from obesity. In the USA, almost 1 in 3 people are obese, while hunger ravages the poorest across the globe. How did we get to this point? The answer is not to say it's always been like this, nor can we lay the blame on wars or natural disasters, though they do make the lives of poor people much more challenging. No, it's mostly policies, in both the North and the South, which are the cause of this situation. Firstly, trade policies. With the reduction or even absence of taxes and quotas at borders, agricultural goods circulate increasingly freely between the markets of poor countries and rich countries. This is trade liberalization. Vast farm businesses from the north use tractors, mechanical equipment and fertilizers at affordable prices and receive financing and subsidies. Farmers in the south are poor and often have only their hands, some tools and a watering can when they're lucky enough to have access to water. They do not benefit from subsidies. They barely have access to fertilizers and quality seeds, and sometimes even their access to land isn't guaranteed. Take milk production, for example. An African cow produces 1 to 5 litres of milk per day, while a European cow produces between 25 and 30 litres. To allow farmers from North and South to compete in the same global market through free trade is like making a featherweight fight a heavyweight. Secondly, agricultural policies. In industrialized countries, agriculture developed through strong and ambitious policies that enabled countries to become self-sufficient, and even produce surpluses in some cases. In the USA, the budget allocated to American agriculture, which accounts for 1 to 2% of the country's population, is around 95 billion euros. In the EU, the Common Agricultural Policy, which still accounts for a large share of the European budget, is often the main source of revenue for farmers. And yet, in Bolivia, the Democratic Republic of Congo and Ethiopia, politicians have neglected agriculture. Their governments dedicate little, if any, money at all to the agricultural sector, and farmers receive hardly any support. And the small amounts granted to agriculture often focus on export crops, such as coffee, cocoa, cotton or soya. So farmers are discouraged from producing crops that could feed them or the local population. All these policies have made poor countries, though their populations are largely composed of farmers, utterly dependent on food imports from industrialized or emerging countries. And when prices of imported agricultural goods go up in international markets, millions of poor farmers and consumers can't afford the higher prices and therefore don't get enough to eat, as we saw in the food crises of 2008 and 2011. Lastly, energy policies that promote biofuels produced from rapeseed, sugarcane or oil palm also contribute to the impoverishment and hunger of farmers in the poorest countries, who should be farming for food rather than endlessly adapting to the needs of rich countries and their polluting industries. To end this paradox of hunger, farmers, who account for half the world's population, need to be encouraged and supported so they can feed themselves and their families. How can we help this to be achieved? We can help to end hunger by calling on our political leaders to create a favourable framework for family-based agriculture through petitions, protest rallies, political forums, and other forms of action. We can help to end hunger by making sustainable individual consumer choices, by consuming local and seasonal goods and fair trade products. We can help to end hunger by keeping informed and informing those around us, and by volunteering in organizations that are active in the fight against hunger. There are many ways to help eradicate world hunger and poverty, and to support a sustainable production and consumption model, one that can feed the whole planet. It's time for us to act.
Okay, so after watching that video, what do you think? You may type your response in the chat box. For me, it's very intriguing, and it's really makes me think that why the developing countries that suffer from hunger will designated to grow commodities that it's not fulfilling their own needs to grow crops. What do you think about the paradox? So like in this video, just mentioned that there were hunger, and there are people in suffering from hunger, from the climate change, from wars, but in the other side of the world, people from the rich countries, like in United States, one from the three people in the populations, they were obese. This is something, the fact that really intriguing, and something that may be very unfair. Okay. So after we learn about the issues of the paradox and how we see that some of the poor countries or developing countries, they really rely on the food supply from the rich one. I know that that video may be, we can say that it's biased, but it's some issues that we can learn and search further. But I would like you to watch another video that which the speakers telling us that to achieve zero hunger, it is matters of supply chain and equal distribution across the developed and developing countries, and also sustainable farming. So to enhance for more understanding about why supply chain matters and equal distribution from developed and developing countries and sustainable farming matters, I would like you to watch this next video from Esther Ndichu. So she's she will speak to us that hunger is not a food issue, it's a supply chain issue, it's a logistic issue. So Esther Ndichu is a UPS, is working at UPS, and with her knowledge and her experience in working in UPS for many years, she applied some of system at the UPS to enhance the system in some countries in sub-Saharan Africa. And that's why in this in this TEDx event, she will explain how the things that she learned during her professions in UPS helps her to bring innovative solutions to the problems about food logistic, about the sustainable agriculture and food storage in Africa. So let's watch this video.
From the air, the dab is invisible, and then it slowly comes into focus. And the wide expanse of red dust looks like a terracotta platter dotted with black pepper. But as we draw closer, the specks glow, the color changes, and the bare platter fills. As we begin our descent, it becomes clear that the vast array of white, blue, and brown is actually a vast array of tents, row upon row. An area designated for 90,000 people is now home to nearly 500,000 people. We're talking about a city, an area the size of a city like Miami. But this is not a city in the conventional sense. This is Dadaab. Dadaab is the largest refugee camp in the world. And images from Dadaab were plastered in the news outlets during the Horn of Africa drought in 2011 and 2012, with these images of children suffering from acute malnutrition. See, that's the image many people have when we talk about global hunger. But hunger isn't just in refugee camps. Hunger is a global epidemic affecting communities in sub-Saharan Africa, in Asia, and even in the developed world. It's estimated that there are over 800 million hungry people in the world. And 18 million of those people live in cities in North America, Europe, and Australia. See, when most people talk about global hunger, they think that the problem is that there isn't enough food in the world. But the problem isn't the lack of food. Because the absurd thing is that there actually is enough food in the world to feed the entire population. See, the problem isn't the lack of food. Hunger is a logistics problem. It is a problem of getting the available food to the people that need it most. It is a problem that affects all aspects of the supply chain. It includes the elements such as storage, transportation, packaging, international shipping, customs, things such as the road networks and tracking and visibility capabilities. It's estimated that about a third of the food produced in the world is wasted. Some of it rots in warehouses awaiting transportation to the market, while some of it rots at ports and border crossings awaiting customs clearance. And then some of it just rots in the field because the farmers do not think it's economically worth it for them to harvest it. In India, for example, 30% of the fruits and vegetables that are harvested rot before they get to the people that need them most because they lack proper cold storage facilities. And every year, farmers in sub-Saharan Africa lose 30 to 40% of their crops after harvesting to insects, rodents, rain, and mold. In Africa, it's estimated that the food that goes to waste could feed up to 49 million people, which I think is a shame. But you see, to me, this is not just about statistics. I was born and raised in Kenya, a country where agriculture is the backbone of a very diverse and bustling economy. But people still go hungry there, and food rots in the farms because farmers just don't have access to a proper supply chain to get their surpluses to the market. And I got to see this firsthand growing up on my uncle's farm, where they would end up feeding the cabbages to the cows or let it rot in the field because they weren't able to sell it or to get it to the markets. And the sad thing was, they actually needed that additional income to supplement their dietary needs and also meet all their other cover their other household expenses. Fortunately, there are some solutions that are being worked on and implemented to solve some of these problems. I happen to work for a very good organization, UPS. And at my job at UPS, a global logistics company, I have the opportunity to work with non-governmental organizations to strengthen their supply chains. We fund different supply chain initiatives and also offer our expertise as a leading logistics provider. And we also support these organizations during disasters to get much-needed supplies out to the disaster zones. And I believe that the opportunity for us to be able to make a difference through logistics is as numerous as the number of hungry people in the world. See, the key areas that we focus on are getting food to the market, coming up with better storage facilities, and using our influence as a leading logistics company to encourage trade in emerging countries, both on a local and a regional level. And last but not least, using technology to address what we call the last mile problem. So for example, this year we've been working with the World Food Programme on a project in Uganda to provide farmers with better storage facilities. Historically, the farmers used to use traditional granaries. That is what would be considered a traditional warehouse in a village in Uganda. And then they'd also use gunny sacks, similar to that. But then that meant that their grains were exposed to insects, rain, and all other weather elements. Through our funds to the World Food Programme, we've been able to provide the farmers with more durable silos, such as the ones on the screen, made up of metal and plastic. The results from this project have been amazing. The farmers have been able to decrease their loss by about 98%, which I think is phenomenal. There's another project I'd like to talk to you about, which I think addresses or provides a solution to a very simple transportation problem. Purchase for Progress, which is another World Food Programme initiative, provides small-scale farmers with access to markets for them to sell their surplus produce. Farmers in the Democratic Republic of Congo received bicycles. We like to call them cargo bikes. In the past, the women had to carry sacks weighing over 100 pounds on their bare backs to get the produce to the market. Today, with cargo bikes, the women are able to carry more to the markets, get there faster, and also access further markets too. I'm sure some of the folks in IE would have something to do about the utilization of that bicycle, but nonetheless, through the cargo bikes, these farmers are now able to take their surplus produce to the market, sell it, and with the money, buy additional food to supplement their dietary needs. For example, Marion here is able to sell her surplus corn or maize, and with the money can be able to buy tomatoes, carrots, bananas, fruits to feed her children. And in addition to that, the bicycles also give these farmers access to markets that they would never have been able to get to before. And the trickle effect of that is tremendous, because when assistant farmers have access to markets to sell their surplus, local trade increases. In addition to that, the farmers are also able to break the poverty cycle. See, cash is not the only thing that the private sector has access to. We also have access to innovation and technology that gives us our competitive edge. And I believe that we can use that same technology in the fight against hunger. Now, I welcome you to come with me to Mauritania, where we're implementing a solution, the Relief Link, a last-mile tracking solution. And I'd like to introduce you to Davis. Davis is a registration officer in the Beira camp in Mauritania. The Beira camp is host to about 40,000 refugees from Mali. Davis was very excited to implement the Relief Link solution because he was convinced that there just had to be an innovative solution to help in the distribution of aid in the camp. And even though the Mbera camp only hosts 40,000 people, the challenges of food distribution here are just as daunting as the challenges faced by those that work in Dadaab. Historically, when the refugees showed up in Mbera, they would be given a paper punch card, which would be utilized during the food distribution. It was a very long and manual process for both the refugees and also the UNHCR or UN High Commission refugees staff members working in the camp. In addition to that, it was very easy for the cards to get lost and damaged. And it was difficult to track who got what or whether there was an equitable distribution of the food to the actual refugees in this camp. Today, when the refugees register in the camp, they all receive a smart card with a barcode. And the barcode contains all their information. And I'm not just talking about names. No, it's the names and all vital information that's associated with that family, and also the facial recognition. And today, Davis and his crew are able to actually go through the food distribution using a simple handheld device like this. And the results have been tremendous. So not only are they able to finish the food distribution faster, and it's more efficient and accurate, but it makes a big difference from the staff members' perspective.
Oh, sorry about that. Okay. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see it, Dr. Oy.
Okay.
The food distribution here are just as daunting as the challenges faced by those that work in Dadaab. Historically, when the refugees showed up in Mbera, they would be given a paper punch card, which would be utilized during the food distribution. It was a very long and manual process for both the refugees and also the UNHCR or UN High Commission refugees staff members working in the camp. In addition to that, it was very easy for the cards to get lost and damaged. And it was difficult to track who got what or whether there was an equitable distribution of the food to the actual refugees in this camp. Today, when the refugees register in the camp, they all receive a smart card with a barcode. And the barcode contains all their information. And I'm not just talking about names. No, it's the names and all vital information that's associated with that family, and also the facial recognition. And today, Davis and his crew are able to actually go through the food distribution using a simple handheld device like this. And the results have been tremendous. So not only are they able to finish the food distribution faster, and it's more efficient and accurate, but it makes a big difference from the staff members' perspective. Relief Link was born from a proprietary software that UPS owns and was used during the Haiti earthquake. Davis today likes to say that after Relief Link, my life has changed. We used to have to carry 25 laptops to the field, carry a whole bunch of folders and papers that we had to keep track of during the distribution. The change is amazing, because today not only are we able to create reports, but we're also able to finish the distribution faster, which gives us time to do other things in the camp, which I think is a great testimony from a user. Relief Link is also being tested in the Doloado camp in Ethiopia. And our hope is that it will be used in camps, large camps like Dadaab, and also to support larger emergencies in the world. See, I think if we focus on solutions similar to these that I've just gone over today, we can be able to get food to those that need it most. And I think the best way for us to be able to do this is by forging public-private partnerships between governments, non-governmental organizations, the private sector, and investing in supply chains. And if we do so, I think we can achieve zero hunger in our lifetime. Thank you.
Okay, so I have typed questions in chat box. So while you watching that video from Aston Dichu, so I would like you to share about the agriculture or food issues in your region and what will be your idea to tackle it. And for example, in Indonesia, in my country, the price of chili. So Indonesian, we really love spicy and hot food. And during the rainy seasons, the price of chili is always rising. And what I think it's because of the rainy season cause damages to the chili crops, and the farmers, they don't have a good food storage, and unlike some of the countries, they will make a grain or powder, like chili powder from the plants. But in that case, in Indonesia, we love to have a fresh chili. So what will you think about the solutions? What will be the innovative solutions on this? And like we have watched the previous video from Aston D2, that the zero hunger related issues in developing countries like in Africa, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa, tackling logistic problems such as providing better storage facilities, giving cargo bikes for small-scale farmers, and creating Relief Link, a food distribution system in refugee camps, are some of the innovative solutions that offered by Ms. Dichu. So how about you? What would you think about the food issues in Indonesia? Okay, Alia, please.
Okay, hello, Miss uh,
Yes.
Miss Octaviyanti, can you hear my voice?
Yes, very clearly, Alia.
Okay, yeah. So I am coming from Surabaya, East Java in Indonesia. I was working in Tani Hub. It is one of the agricultural e-commerce in Indonesia. It's pretty big, and I am pretty know really well about this issues, yeah, this problem of agriculture in Indonesia. So in Indonesia itself, they are have highest logistic and supply chain cost in ASEAN. So yeah, in ASEAN itself, in South Asia, we have highest logistic cost. That's why the price of food is pretty high here because of that. And then Indonesia itself, we have poor policies for tackling agricultural problems such as the culture of dependency to the middleman, because our farmer is really dependent to the middleman to sell their goods. That's why the price of food in Indonesia is high, and the 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 food is not spreaded so well like that. And then we have a problem in material handling, cultivation, and harvest process. In there, we have like lost a lot of food, and then it become waste because of the inefficiency itself. So from Tani Hub, we make some like innovations. We created some packing houses from each field of farmers. We have like small packing house to packing the vegetables or the fruits. We do the quality assurance there, and then we we created some warehouses nearby to sell the products to the nearby markets like that. So we cut some of supply chain, the chain of the supply chain in food. One of them is the middleman, like that.
Okay, thank you so much, Olia, for sharing your experience and also your knowledge. It's very valuable to us, and I learned something new today. And it is because in Indonesia, why the price is higher because the highest logistic costs. And actually, we in Indonesia the logistic cost is highest in ASEAN. And poor policies to tackling the middleman, I really agree with you. I think it's still a puzzle that we need to fix. And thank you for sharing about what you're doing for the local farmers, creating a packaging houses straight from the farmers, create have a warehouses to cut the supply chains. Amazing. I think one day we have to invite you as one of the speakers here. Isn't right, Mas Ade? Thank you,
Yes.
Aulia.
Oh,
Okay. Okay. So I just have received a reminder from the committee that actually my time to deliver this lecture is end. It's already up, so it's 16:21, and I hope what I have just delivered to you have triggered your curiosity to learn more about the zero hunger. And I know the number is very daunting. It's sometimes that we don't realize that 821 million people are suffered from hunger. And I know it's not around us, but it's something that we have to aware. And what one of the participants, Aulia, have shared about the innovations of I think the company that she worked with to cut the supply chains, the middlemen, and so people can have more access to from the farmers, and we can buy straight from the farmers. And that's one of the what we can do, support the local farmers. I think that's discussions, and also the wrap up or close as a closures of my lecture. And I will give it back to Mas Ade as the moderator. Thank you.
thank you very much, Dr. Octaviyanti. Very, very enlightening lecture regarding to know or zero hunger, and such a great discussion between Dr. Oin and Mbak Aulia, I guess, and such a great idea to cut the supply chains that people can buy directly to the farmers. Okay, for participants, please write down your question through the link that has been sent to the Zoom chat box. We will have the Q&A session before the closing agenda later. And now we are proceed to the next agenda, a lecture by Dr. Danilo and Oficiar entitled A Framework for Improving Mental Health. Before we listen to the lecture, let me introduce our speaker, or I already introduced Dr. Danilo before. Dr. Danilo is Vice President for Student Services in Tarlac Agricultural University. Dr. Danilo, the time is yours.
Thank you very much, sir. And let me just share my screen. Can you see my screen now?
Not
Clearly,
yet
Edgar.
in full, but not yet in full screen, Dr. Danilo. Pardon
How
me.
about that?
Oh yeah, now it's perfect. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. Thank you very much for this opportunity that you have given me to talk about mental health. And I will be discussing this afternoon a framework for improving mental health. As we all know, there are uh, many frameworks in solving our problem with regards to mental health. And we all know and we are already aware that mental health is becoming a global problem nowadays. In every country, people are experiencing anxiety, they are experiencing stress, they are experiencing depression. And this is evidenced by the sudden increase of cases in suicides and admissions in mental institutions. And so it is proper for us to discuss how to improve our mental health. And as I've said, there are many ways, there are many methods, there are many frameworks that are being used to improve people's mental health. And so today I will just be discussing one of those frameworks, particularly this I hope would help us to uh, help other people improve their mental health. So as I start, let me just first start with Psychological Association Dictionary of Clinical Psychology, which was published in 2013. Mental health is a state of mind characterized by emotional well-being, behavioral adjustment, relative freedom from anxiety and disabling symptoms, and a capacity to establish constructive relationship and cope with the ordinary demands and stresses of life. So from this definition, we can see at least several characteristics of this definition. Okay, so we can see that mental health involves our emotional well-being. Okay, secondly, it involves our behavioral adjustment. In other words, if there are adversities or problems that will come to us, we will be able to adjust our behavior in order for us to cope with those stresses in life. Okay, and number three, we can also see from this definition that mental health also involves freedom from anxiety and other disabling symptoms. So in other words, these symptoms, this stress, this depression, and many other disabling symptoms sometimes would hinder us in performing our tasks, in performing the things that are required of us, both in school and in our work. And so if a person has a higher level of mental health, he has a relative freedom of anxiety and other disabling symptoms. Whereas if a person has low level of mental health, he is not free from these things. In fact, they will be disabled to perform their tasks in school and in work because of these symptoms. Okay. Number four, element of mental health is the capacity to establish constructive relationship. In other words, a person who has a higher level of mental health has the ability to establish and maintain good relationship with other people, romantic or otherwise. Okay. And number five, is the capacity to cope with the ordinary demands of life. We all know that in our everyday lives, we are constantly bombarded by so much uh, stimuli. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. And a person who has a higher level of mental health is able to cope with the ordinary demands of life. Okay. So having said that, let me remind everyone that all of us are prone to be attacked by bad stimuli that are coming from our environment. And these things could really affect our mental health. Say, for example, stress, lack of sleep, problems in work, problems in our studies, okay, for our students, and many others. There are a lot of things, there are a lot of factors that could affect our mental health. And as I've said a while back, these factors really affect the populace, not only in the Philippines, not only in Indonesia, but even Western countries, whom we think are, say, richer than us, wealthier than us, and many other advantages that they have. But if we look at the statistics, the cases of admissions in mental institutions and the cases of suicide in those countries are also going up. So in other words, all these things affects our mental health, and it doesn't excuse us whether we belong to a rich country or we belong to a poor country. Okay, so now there are two types. Basically, there are two types of stressors: things that causes us to be stressed and things that affects our mental health. So basically, these are categorized into two. The first is what we call internal stressors, and this consists of our physiology and our genetics. It means that when we talk about physiology, it has something to do with the various parts of our body and the systems of our body and the various processes that are going on in our bodies. One example of this is our has something to do with what we call pharmacology, biochemistry, no? And our body produces certain chemicals. We call them hormones and many other types of chemicals that are running through our body. And the lack of these chemicals or the excess of these chemicals produces some type of internal stressors in us that generally affects the way we think and the way we feel. Okay. Another thing is our genetic makeup, and of course we do not have control over that because it is natural, no. And some people are really prone to stress. Some people are really prone to anxiety because they have inherited this disposition for these things. Okay. Secondly, another internal stressor is what we call our physical health. If we are not healthy physically, of course, it naturally affects the way we feel and the way we think. Okay, and these are sometimes the reason why our mental health is also affected. And of course, our cognitions. When we say cognitions, this is the way we think. This is the way we interpret the things that are happening to us. For instance, you graduated as an honor student or as a cum laude or magna cum laude or whatever. Naturally, it will produce happiness in us. But there are people that are not happy even if they are awarded such honors. The reason is because they interpret such things differently from us. Okay. The second set of stressors are what we call external stressors. These are our experiences in life. Okay. These are our experiences in important life domains. For example, in our leisure life, in our social life, the way we socialize with other people, we experience things, okay? In our sex life, in our family life, and even in our work life. So all these experiences in the important domains of our lives have somehow affect the way we look at things, the way we feel about things, and these things sometimes produces stress in us, okay? So in other words, if we try to look at the internal and external sources of stress, we can see that no one is exempted with stress, with anxiety, and with depression and many other negative emotions that may come our way. Okay, and because there are internal stressors and there are external stressors that are coming our way, our mental health is at risk. And this is the reason why we need to have a framework on how we can cope and how we help other people to cope with these stresses in life so that they can improve their mental health. Now, there are basically two ways of approaching this problem. And the old paradigm, the old framework that we psychologists are using is based on the medical model or the scientific model. So what is the scientific model? Once a person experiences some problems in his mental health or whatever problem, no, the very first thing that we do is to determine the problem. What's the problem? Say, for instance, this person is having insomnia, or this person is having some form of anxiety or some stress, or this person is having some bouts with depression, etc., etc. And the very first thing that we as individuals do is to determine what's the problem. Okay. After determining what's the problem, we try to look at what causes the problem. So, for example, he is experiencing anxiety. That's the problem. So, what causes that anxiety? So, as scientists, as psychologists in the medical profession, they often want to determine what causes that anxiety, what causes that problem. And once the problem is identified, the very next logical thing to do is to remove the cause of the problem. So that if you remove the cause of the problem, then there will be no problem anymore. Okay, so that's the medical model. For example, if you are experiencing some symptoms in your body, and you go to the doctor will conduct some assessment with you, and he found out that there is a tumor inside your body. So that's the cause of your symptoms. That's the cause of your problem. So what will doctor do? He will remove the tumor either by operation or by using medicine. Okay, so that if you remove the cause of the problem will go away. It works something like this. And because we all believe in science, we believe that for every effect there is a cause. Okay, so for every problem there is always a cause for that problem. So here is the cause of the problem. Now, based on that model, if we remove the cause of the problem, then the problem will also disappear. Okay, so that is one perspective in dealing with psychological problems. However, there is an inadequacy of the problem-solving model, meaning it is not enough. Okay, so why did we say it's not enough? Number one, because it is difficult to determine a single cause. So for every problem that we have, it is very, very difficult for us to pinpoint just a single problem, just a single cause of our problem. In our physical body, probably it's easier to determine what's the problem, okay, like a tumor or anything. However, when it comes to our psychological problems, there are various and varied causes of our problem. So in other words, what I'm trying to say is, even if we have a symptom, it is very difficult to pinpoint just one cause of that symptom. If you are experiencing anxiety, it is very, very difficult to determine one cause of that anxiety, because probably there are many causes of that anxiety. Okay? So number two, identifying a single cause may lead us to ignore the whole situation. So for instance, you're experiencing anxiety, and one reason because one reason why you are experiencing that anxiety is because you have been bombarded by so many what do you call this, so many assignments or projects coming from your teachers. Okay, so that's the problem. And so you propose a solution to that. Let's remove all the assignments, all the projects, etc., etc. And let's just have examination instead of having those assignments. However, you just singled out one problem. You just singled out one cause of your problem, and you concluded that the cause of your problem is the assignments, but you did not even consider that maybe the cause of your problem is not the number of assignments you are receiving from your teacher. It may be because you are procrastinating. Okay, and you can do all those assignments if you do them on time, but because you procrastinated and waited until the deadline, and because your teacher all have the same deadlines, now you are pressured and now you are experiencing anxiety. You see, identifying one single cause may lead us to ignore the whole situation. Number three, removing the cause of a problem is sometimes not feasible. There are problems that we need to live with it. Let me give you an example. For example, you are working in a certain university or in certain office, and your boss or maybe your colleague, one of your workmate, is causing you trouble. He is the cause of your stress. He is the cause of your anxiety. Okay, and because he is your boss, what will you do if you have identified that he is the cause of your problem? You cannot remove him in office because he is your boss, or you cannot resign from that work because it is your bread and butter. You are working there unless you are willing to move out of the work of that job and find another job, but that it would be very, very difficult for you, especially if you are the breadwinner in your family. Okay, so removing the cause of a problem is sometimes not feasible. Okay, number four, it can lead us to believe that if the problem is removed, everything will be fine. So this model, I'm trying to explain to you right now, the first model or the old model is that when we remove the problem, we think everything will be fine, only to find out that it's not. Okay, because the problem is so much complicated that there is no single cause of that problem. So what should we do? So what is the alternative framework that could improve our mental health? One alternative framework is for us to design a positive outcome, or designing a positive outcome, not only focusing on the problem, but focusing on a certain goal so that in achieving that goal, the problem will be eradicated. Okay, so there should be a shift from problem analysis, because sometimes when we experience anxiety, we experience stress and many other psychological problem, we try to analyze the problem. Okay, we focus what's the cause of the problem, let's try to remove the problem, etc., etc. We call that problem analysis. Okay, on the other hand, there is what we call goal analysis. Goal analysis shifts the focus from the problem to your goal. So let me say this again, no, as an example. You are working in a certain office and you are experiencing anxiety, and the problem, no, your problem, the cause of your problem, the cause of your anxiety is your boss. You focus on analyzing your problem, but the thing is, you cannot eradicate the problem because your problem is your boss. The cause of your problem is your boss. So, but you cannot resign from the work because you are the breadwinner. It's your bread and butter. So what will you do? So instead of focusing on the problem, you focus on your goals. What are your goals as an employee? So probably you have to set your goals and try to attain them. You try to analyze those goals, shifting the focus from the problem to your goal, so that you can start working on your goal, not working on your problem. Because as I've said, there are times that the problem that we have to live with our problem. Okay, now having said that, let me share with you the complete state model of mental health by Case and Lopez. Okay, according to this model, there are two things that we need to look into. The first one, the first dimension is the mental illness symptoms, and this is the horizontal, okay, and this one vertical is well-being symptoms. Okay, so because we intersected these two dimensions, it produces four quadrants. The first quadrant, where the person is experiencing high mental illness. So if you look at this, this is the dimension for mental health. The lower your score here, the higher is your mental illness. The higher you score, the lower is your mental illness. Okay, the same is true with high well-being symptoms and low well-being symptoms. So if you score low on this dimension, you have high mental illness, and when it comes to your well-being, you scored low. You also have low well-being score. So in that case, you will be floundering. Okay, and then on the other side, you have you do not have any mental illness symptoms, but your well-being is low. You are languishing. On the next quadrant, you have symptoms of mental illness, but you are high in well-being. Like, for example, you have many friends, you have social support, you are rich, so your well-being is high, but you are exhibiting some symptoms of mental illness, so you are struggling. And the fourth quadrant is flourishing. This is when the person has no mental illness, no symptoms of mental illness, and he has a high symptoms of well-being. Okay, now in order for us to improve our mental health, as I've said, we focus on two goals. Number one is avoidance goal, and number two is approach goal. Number one, the avoidance goal is the type of goal which motivate individuals to move away or eradicate negative stimuli. Okay, that's the old model that we have. Okay, and the approach goal, this type of goals motivate a person to move toward a positive stimuli, or toward positive stimuli. This is the alternative or the additional framework that I would like to discuss based on the complete state model of mental health. Okay, so our goal therefore is on two dimensions. On mental illness symptoms, we try to eradicate those symptoms and improve the individual from high mental illness symptom to low mental illness symptom. And the second goal for us is to goal to avoid high mental illness symptoms and to improve high well-being symptoms. Okay, so for instance, there are people who are struggling, people who are floundering, and people who are languishing. Our goal, therefore, is to move these people into this quadrant, flourishing, so that all our efforts, all the interventions that we are going to do is moving individuals from these quadrants to this quadrant. Okay, so that is the goal. Now, how do we do that? A balanced approach is to avoid or minimize symptoms of mental illness and to improve well-being. So that is a balanced approach. We do not just focus on the problem, we also focus on the goals of the individual, so that we will be able to help the person improve his mental health. Okay, so here again are our goals: to minimize symptoms of mental illness and to improve the well-being of the individual. That's the goal in order for us to improve the mental health of people. Okay. How? The question would be how? How are we going to minimize symptoms of mental illness? Okay. And Number one is avoiding or removing causes or triggers. So in other words, if a person is experiencing an anxiety, the first thing that he can do to minimize the symptoms of that anxiety is to do his or her best to avoid or remove. If you cannot remove, then you have to avoid. What? The causes or the triggers. What triggers your anxiety? You try to remove that. Now, if you cannot remove that, you try to avoid that. Okay? So that is how to minimize your mental illness. Number two is developing resilience. So there are times that you cannot remove the cause, you cannot avoid even the cause. So what are you going to do? You try to work on your resilience. Okay, because this is a characteristic that can be improved, that can be developed. Of course, with the help of professionals, you can improve your resilience. Okay, this is if you cannot avoid or remove the cause or triggers of your anxiety. So you work on your resilience. So that would be your approach goal. Okay. Now, number two is to improve well-being. So before we move on to how to improve well-being, let me remind everyone that there is a distinction between a person's objective situations and his subjective evaluations and his feelings regarding his life. What I'm trying to say is this. When we look at a person objectively, probably he is rich, he has a good wife, he has good children, he has supportive colleagues at work, and he is rich. Everything is good about this person. So when we try to look at the objective situation of this person, probably we will say that he has a very high level of well-being because we are looking at the objective situation of the person. However, a person having these things in his life may have a different cognition about these things. He may have a different subjective evaluations of these things. Okay? And so therefore, a person may have objectively may have a high well-being as we look at him, but subjectively, he doesn't consider himself to be lucky or blessed. Okay? And this moves us to another concept which we call subjective well-being. Subjective well-being, therefore, is not based on the objective situation of a person because a person who is poor, a person who is single, who has no wife, has no children, may be happy and satisfied in life. Whereas, on the other hand, a person who is rich, have a good wife, have good children, supportive teammates at work, may have low subjective well-being because he thinks about it differently. Okay. Now, the Dictionary of Clinical Psychology defines subjective well-being as the judgment that people make about the overall quality of their lives. And this is the reason why I'm saying there are people who are poor but are happy. There are people who are rich but are not happy. There are people who are single and are happy, but there are people who are married who are not happy. Okay, so it's because of their subjective evaluations of their situations. Okay, so when we say let us try to help individuals not only by minimizing problems but also improving their sense of well-being, we focus therefore not on well-being as in general, but on subjective well-being. Okay, so I hope I'm clear with that. Now, what are the predictors of subjective well-beings? There are three according to Compton. Number one, cognitive predictors. Number two, positive relationship with people. And number three, personality traits. Let's talk about them one by one. There are several cognitive predictors of well-being. Number one is self-esteem. If a person has high self-esteem, he thinks of himself highly, then that person has a high tendency to be subjectively well. Okay? Optimism and hope. If a person has high level of optimism and he has a high level of hope, then that person has a high subjective well-being. Another is sense of control and self-efficacy, meaning the person believes that he has control over everything that is happening to him. And the person thinks that he can do things efficiently. Another is a sense of meaning in life. A person who has a sense of meaning for his life, he knows what he is living for. Okay, that person has a high level of subjective well-being. Decision and self-reflection also. In other words, this person thinks about his life, thinks about how he can contribute to the society, etc., etc. So now, because we are talking about of improving subjective well-being here, in order for us to be able to help the person improve his mental health, there are psychological intervention that could actually help our clients or actually help individuals, our students, our colleagues at work. There are psychological intervention that we can do in order for us to be able to help them increase their self-esteem, optimism, and hope, and many others. Okay, so these are the cognitive factors. And another thing is personality traits. Though it has been proven through research that extraversion, agreeableness, and conscientiousness are positively correlated with high well-being. However, this is personality. And though we believe that personality changes, but personality is relatively permanent, meaning it is hard to change personality. So probably in this area, it takes a greater effort for the individual to be able to improve on this area. Okay, so in conclusion, in order to improve mental health, we aspire to avoid those that could trigger symptoms of mental illness, and we foster the development of our resilience, while at the same time improving our sense of well-being. So there are only two things that we need to do. Number one is to avoid those that triggers our psychological problem, and try to develop our resilience, and at the same time improve our sense of well-being with the things that we have just discussed. Okay, thank you very much, and here are my references for this sharing.
Okay, thank you very much for the explanation. Very, very insightful, Dr. Danilo. Actually, maybe most of us expect to get explanation about traditional issue in health, such as disease, epidemic, or pandemic that currently we experience now. But instead of traditional issue about health, we we got very, very insightful explanation about mental health that also really matter in the meantime. Okay, so we are going to the Q&A session. Allow me to read some of the questions that already. Okay, first questions from Queenie C. Fijo from Surigao State College of Technology. Oh, sorry. From Aulia Harumi Baharisa. Oh, sorry. From Lintang Nur Aziza, I mean. From Institut Teknologi 10 November. To Dr. Octaviyanti Dwi Wahyurini, how can I contribute to solve hunger problems as an interior design student? Can we as interior design students help to solve this problem with our major? Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Lintang. I saw Lintang here. Thank you for a very good question. So, Lintang, what do you learn in interior design?
Excuse me. My name is Lintang Aziza, and I'm from Institute Technology of 10 November. What we learn in interior design is about arts and architectural, and also about culture. That's it.
Thank you so much. So I think you can start to because to end the food hunger and also zero hunger, how you can contribute that. First of all, you may um, support the local farmers. So like creating a shop, an interior of a shop for small scale farmers. And also maybe you can see a lot of alternatives for urban farming and how like the interior. I think you have an interior science in your field, right? And you can learn how like the lighting in a room could support urban farming. It's something that maybe you would like to look at for the zero hunger, and also to contribute to eradicate the hunger, and also contribute to zero hunger movement. You can also participate for not wasting your food. That's also one of steps or movement that you can do as a student. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Ain. So, as a person, we can participate in this zero hunger movement by be grateful and maximize the food that we got. Thank you very much, Dr. Ain. And okay, so I already mentioned that from Aulia Harumi, there's a question from her. She is from ITS. The question is to Dr. Oin. The main problem of food chain in the food handling from the cultivation harvest until it's processed in our kitchen, not to mention about our logistic and supply chain costs. It's sad to think about it. What can we do to make food chain more efficient and sustainable? Because I read Indonesia has some highest cost in logistic and supply chain. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mas Ade. I think Aulia is the one who shared her experience to us during my lecture, and I think it's more like a question that could trigger our curiosity, yeah, from Aulia. And I think Aulia already answer her own questions. The first is trying to buy straight away from the local farmers, support our local farmers instead of buying from the middleman. Because if people buying from the middleman, it means that you would pay like 7 to 8 times from the original price. For example, you can buy spinach for 10,000 rupias for a bunch, I think. But in the local farmer, if you buy straight away from them, you can buy more than a bunch of a spinach. I also have a experience. Instead of buying broccoli from the supermarket, where I have to pay like 25,000 rupias from the supermarket, I can get 2 to 3 kilos with the same price from the local farmers.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Ain. Actually, Dr. Ain share her experience to buy directly to the farmer, and the price is cut more than a half. And
I think Mas Ade also has some experience because he actually originated from Batu, a nice city with a very nice weather, and it is, I think it's very convenient to buy the crops or all the food straight away from the farmers, isn't it, Mas Ade?
yes, correct. Actually, there is so much farmers in Batu, in my hometown, and most of potatoes that distributed in Surabaya is from Batu, and the price is very very high for vegetables in Surabaya compared with the one that sell in Batu, and this is one of the culture shock that I got here.
Okay, thank you for sharing, Mas Ade. I hope
Yes.
that answer Aulia's questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Ain. So, and yes, correct, Aulia. Actually, the supply chain in Indonesia is very, very long. That makes the price, that makes the vegetable in Indonesia very, very pricey. Okay, we move to the question from Queenie. Okay, Queenie. From Queenie. Queenie is student of Surigao State College of Technology, Philippines. Dr. Danilo, what is the best treatment for having an insomnia?
Thank you very much for that question. There are several causes of insomnia. No, one is our cognition, meaning the things that we are thinking about. Okay, so number two is it could also be caused by some physiological factors, like for example, some internal chemicals that are being produced by our bodies, like for example the various neurotransmitters, and also sometimes it's also caused by what they call this, by chemicals that we put into our bodies, like for example coffee, uh, soda, and many other things. So as I've said in the framework that I have shared with you, there are two things that we need to look into. The first one is to determine the cause of the problem. What causes it? Okay, so if the cause is something physical, for instance, or something physical, something chemical, for instance, it's because of drinking too much coffee, drinking too much soda, and many other things, or probably you are on medication, okay? And because there are some types of medication that actually, what do you call this, prevents you from sleep, okay? So you have to avoid those things first. So you have to determine if your insomnia is caused by that. Number two, uh, you have to determine really if that is clinical insomnia. Okay, because when we say clinical insomnia, it has to be assessed that it is really insomnia. Because sometimes if we cannot sleep at night, we always say it's insomnia, because we cannot sleep. But insomnia is really a technical term that what do you call this, that says we have some what do you call this, we have some illness or sickness. Okay, so you have to determine if that is really inability to sleep. Sometimes you cannot sleep up to 1 or 2 in the morning, or sometimes you can sleep well, no? So I think that's not insomnia at all. There are only instances that you cannot sleep, but that's not insomnia at all, because insomnia as an illness, which is clinically diagnosed, is different from our inability to sleep at different times. Okay, so number one, we have to determine if it is really insomnia. Number two, if it is insomnia, what causes that? Okay, and if it is not insomnia and it is only your inability to sleep, then you have to determine what causes your inability to sleep at different times. Okay, and as I've said, if it is chemical or physiological, you can deal with that. Now, if it is psychological, that is a different story. Okay, because if it is psychological, then you have to be assessed. Okay, and if it is clinical, you are clinically diagnosed to have insomnia and the cause is psychological, then you have to be assessed by a professional in order for you to get help.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Danilo. So first thing that we have to do is determine what causing our insomnia. Is it clinical, chemical, or psychological? If it is really insomnia, so there is some way we can ask the professional, is it really insomnia and what is the cure? And the cause of insomnia might be different into two. First of all is the production of chemical inside of our body, and also chemical that from outside our body that we consume. Thank you very much, Dr. Danilo. There is one more question for Dr. Danilo. Okay, how to build our awareness about respect or love ourselves? Because sometimes life learn us with the huge problem, but in the other side we have to realize our limitation. On the one hand, life teaches us to be strong, but on the other hand, how to handle the problem so it won't break us down. Thank you, Dr. Danilo, please.
Sorry. I hope I understood the question. Okay, so let me try to answer that based on my understanding of the question. I guess the person asking is trying to ask how can we face the adversities that are coming to us. I guess that's my understanding, and because sometimes our experiences can bring us down, but sometimes our experiences, the adversities that comes to us, make us strong. So how the question there is, how can we make the most of these experiences so that we will not break down when this comes, and we will be able to surmount those things in order for us to become better person. I hope I get the idea of the question. Okay, so there are several factors that that can be taken into consideration for this. Number one is the level of resilience of the person. There are people that are naturally resilient at their adult stage of life, and probably that level of resilience have been developed as they were growing. Okay, for instance, there are people who grew from poor families that had experienced so many adversities and troubles in their lives that they are used to it already. They are already immune to those adversities in life, so that whatever comes to them when they grow up, they are already immune to that and they can face any adversity. There are also people that are not used to those things because they have everything in their lives when they were growing up, and suddenly, all of a sudden, they are faced with such adversities. And that one reason, that is probably one of the reasons why there are people who are knocked down by adversities. So one factor is the developmental process that the person has undergone. Okay. Number two is not only the level of resilience that this person has, which is developed through the developmental process, but also the psychosocial support that the person is currently enjoying. When I say psychosocial support, this pertains to social relationships. This pertains to social structure where the person is. So when I say social structure, for instance, the family where you belong, the institution where you belong, like the school, the work that you are in, and the other support structures that you are currently in. Okay. And of course your social relationship, your friends, your family, your colleagues at work, etc., etc. Okay, so those are some of the factors that could really help a person uh, develop his resilience, because resilience is not just internal, it is not just a characteristic of a person, but it also has something to do with the social support that the person is getting. So what I'm trying to say is this: what can a person do so that he can overcome the adversities and not be knocked down by the adversities that are coming his way? So the first thing that a person himself can do is to seek out and strengthen the social support that he has. Okay. Those social support is provided, again, as I've said, by those that are close to you, your family, your friends, your colleagues at work, okay, and many other things. Okay. So that's the first thing that a person should do. Now, if the person thinks that the social structure surrounding him is not that supportive or is lacking in his life, again, I advise that he can consult with a professional. Now, if you are a student, you can go to your guidance counselor so that he can assist you, he can help you to with those things that are currently happening in your life.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Danilo. So to overcome the adversity that we experience, we have to seek out a support system to our close relative, from our colleague, from our family, and from our friends. And okay, is there still any time, Mbak Rainy, for other questions?
Yeah, it seems that our lecture today has deliver a big knowledge that spark out the for the participant. But we can bring one more question, Mas Ade, to each to one speaker. Thank you.
Okay, so one more questions for one of our speakers. You can just open your mic or raise your hand. Okay, please don't hesitate to ask questions.
Mas Adi, can I ask a questions to Dr. Danilo?
Yes, please, Dr. Ain.
Okay, Dr. Danilo, when we, how do we know that we need a help? If we experience a mental health and okay, I think I need a help. What will be the hints?
Okay, thank you very much, ma'am. First of all, we are not we are not some sort of fortune tellers that we can read minds, that we know that they are in trouble. Okay, in school setting, in a school setting, particularly our guidance counselors and those people who are in the student services, one thing that I suggest is for them to conduct a regular assessment with students. When I say regular assessment, there should be a testing program that is supposed to be done regularly to all students, okay, not just a select few, because sometimes when you when you conduct a psychological assessment with a single student, sometimes the person feels embarrassed because he might think that, oh, these people thinks I'm crazy, or these people think I have a problem, etc., etc. So we can remove that embarrassment if we conduct the assessment to all the students. We float a psychological instrument perhaps to all the students, and then from there, from the data, the guidance counselor will know who needs help. And in the workplace, the human resources department is also tasked to not only to take care of the benefits of the employees, but also to take care of the mental health of the employees. So therefore, the human resources department should also make it their advocacy, or make it their responsibility to also have a program for regular assessment among their employees. Okay, so that with this regular program, the people in the human resources department will also be able to determine who among their employees needs psychological help. Okay, so this approach, both in school and in the workplace, uh, is I think very effective if we make it a part of the program of the school and a part of the program of the company where we are in. Now, what if they are not our students, and they are not our co-workers, they do not belong to our company, they do not belong to the work that we have? Okay, so how will we know? How will we know that the person is encountering some problems? Now, familiarity with the person is key to this. When I say familiarity, you have known the person for, probably he's your friend, or probably he is a member of your family. So therefore, you live together, you talk a lot, you go to places with this person, and because of that, you are familiar with the person, and you know how this person behaves on a day-to-day basis. Now, based on that knowledge, you can observe the person if there are changes in the patterns of his behavior. Okay, like probably uh, he was an outgoing person, he talks a lot, etc., etc., and then all of a sudden he's silent, and he does not share stories anymore. She does not go out with you anymore. So probably something is wrong with the person. Okay, so in other words, we can only help people uh, with their problems. Number one, if we are familiar with them, the way they behave, etc., and then suddenly something changed in them. So that's one hint where we can say that the person is having some psychological problem.
Thank you so much, Dr. Danilo,
You're welcome, ma'am.
for the very thorough explanations. Get back to you, Mas Adi.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Oin. Very interesting that in Tarlac Agricultural University, they have a division to keep or maintain their student and their staff mental health. Thank you very much. So, okay, so we are, I guess that's all for today, but Raini, am I correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
because we
Okay.
have a limited time, unfortunately.
Okay, a very, very interesting discussion. Very, very interesting material from Dr. Danilo and Dr. Oin, but unfortunately we have to end our meeting today. Before we end our meeting today, I would like Dr. Danilo and Oficiar for the excellent lecture today. Please give applause to our speakers by using the Zoom reaction feature. Okay, furthermore, we would like to present a certificate awarding to our speaker today. We would like to share a certificate awarding for our both speakers today. Okay, this is certificate for Dr. Oin. Okay, and this is the certificate for Dr. Danilo. Okay, however, since our campus is still half open following the pandemic protocol, we would like to apologize since it is not yet fully signed. We hope to be able to send the soft file version of the certificate the sooner in the future, and we will also send it to your postal address. Once again, thank you very much, Dr. Oin and Dr. Danilo, and for your availability and contribution on today's guest lecture series on SDGs. We believe that your lecture will be beneficial for all participants in understanding sustainable development goals, especially zero hunger and good health and well-being goal. Okay, now before we end our lecture today, we invite all participants as well as the honorable speaker and honorable speaker to take a group photo. Therefore, we would like to ask or request all the participants to open their camera. Okay, as we have 4 slides, Mbak Reini, as we have 4 slides, please keep smiling until we finish the photo session. But Reini, could you take over for the photo session?
Okay, thank you, Mas Ade. And for the first slide, I will count until 3. Okay, 1, 2, 3, and we move to the second slide. Okay, 1, 2, 3, and the third slide. 1, 2, 3, and the fourth slide. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Okay, great, everyone. Thank you very much. Now we have finished the group photo. Then for the participants, please fill the feedback through the link. Mbak Reni, could you please share the feedback link? Okay, thank you very much. You can find the feedback link on your chat box. We also want to remind you that the participant who will get the stamp are the participants who come on time, join this event until the end, and also fill the feedback form. For the next SDGs goal, we will have Mr. Ahmad Junaidi from Monash University and Mr. Marlo J. Eliab from San Pedro College in stream 1. And for stream 2, we have Associate Professor Nur Hazarina from University Technology Malaysia. And in Thursday, we have Dr. Sharon Wilson from University Tunku Abdul Rahman and Miss Lanivel Manalo from University of Batangas. And in stream 2, we have Dr. Tania Islam from University of Malaya and Dr. Jonel Pineda Lanada from West Visayas State University. Okay, finally, we have reached the end of today's guest lecture series. Thank you very much to our honorable speakers and all participants for the attention and cooperation. We have to see you again in next agenda. Don't forget to follow our social media on Instagram at ITS International Office and Facebook ITS International Office, and keep update of our programs. See you on GLS on SDGs next week.
Okay, thank you, Mas Ade. Thank you, Marini. Thank you, Dr. Danilo.
Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Ayn.
Thank you, everyone. God
Thank you,
bless.
everyone.
Thank you,
Okay.
Dr. Danilo.
Have a
Okay,
good
thank you
evening.
everyone, and allow me to end this session in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Goodbye and please stay safe. See you tomorrow.
Thank you.